What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Peña Knives Bravo. So the Peña Knives Bravo is the latest version, or the latest knife from Enrique Peña. And Enrique Peña is a custom knife maker out of Texas. But what he's done is he's partnered up with Reate, and his production line, he has a more affordable line. It's called the X series, and that's what you see right here. The Peña X series is done by Reate, and this is his latest model. So let me give you a tour of the knife. What you got here is a sheep's foot blade. It's got this really nice swedge up here. It's flat ground from or saber ground from about right here to right here. This is flat. You got an M390 blade, as you can see right here. It is a liner lock, but the liners are they got some decent thickness to them. This version is the green micarta with the copper accents. You can see copper backspacer, copper pivot collars. You got a mill titanium pocket clip, and this is kind of this is very nice because what you've got a thumb stud deployment right here, as you can see. But this little thing actually also works as a front flipper, as you can see right there. So let me give you some size comparison, then we can get started. What you have here is, it's a little bit of a departure from the kind of Trapper, Raptor, Apache series. This is a more substantial knife, and what you see here is that it is just between the sizes of the Para 2 and the Para 3. Okay, obviously because of the blade to handle ratios, you can see the sharpened blade length against the Para 2. It's damn near identical, but this one, it's shorter in that dimension. Now, one thing that is nice is that this one actually folds up to a fairly compact version. If you see those two for the exact same blade length, or very close to the same blade length, it's a much more compact knife. Thickness wise, probably they're about the same, in the same neighborhood. This one's contoured, so it disguises its thickness a little bit better. Now let me show you maybe the most apt size comparison is against the bug out. So it's a little bit chunkier than the bug out. It's got a thicker blade. It's got it's thicker overall, but they're about the same length and they carry very similarly. So I'll show you here a thickness comparison. So that's the thickness compare for those two. Obviously this one's thicker in both blades and overall, but again, I think that if you enjoy carrying a bug out, I think you'll enjoy carrying this. One thing that I wanted to note is that this one is heavier than it looks, and that's a good thing. If you follow my channel, you know that anytime that a knife is light, I try to get it to be heavier. I like the feeling of some heft on my hand. That's why I bought this bug out. This is probably the heaviest version of the bug out that they make. And the reason is that these liners, they are not skeletonized at all. There's no internal milling whatsoever on any of this, and as a result, and also you've got this backspacer, as a result, this feels very solid. This feels very nice. Certainly, when you get it in your hand, usually my feeling is that if you see micarta, it automatically my mind registers lightness, right? Micarta is a fairly light material, but in this case, because the liners are a little bit thicker than what you would expect, and they are not skeletonized, then you get a more a heftier knife. So let's get started with ergonomics. And the ergonomics on this is actually very solid. Not perfect, but very solid. So you got a little bit of contouring, just the slightest, but it's neutral enough. But and it's contoured in this direction. There's a slightest curve that it just goes into your hand very, very nicely. I like this size of a knife. Let me see if I can get, look. The blade is a little over 3 inches, maybe 3 1/8, and overall you're looking at probably about 7.5. But what you've got is, I wear large gloves, and what you have is when you do a hammer or saber grip, you get a full 4-finger purchase, but and have no space left. So that's kind of like a perfect size, at least for my hand. So, and it's taller. Well, it's tallish in this dimension, so it fills my hand. It doesn't. It's not one of these knives that it feels like it's gonna disappear in your hand. Like you got the mini bug out, right? And it's such a small handle that my finger touches the back of my hand whenever I try to get my hand around it. That's not the case in this one, right? When I try to get my hand around it, it's substantial enough that I can grab onto it. So, and because it's neutral enough, several different grips. This one's pretty uncomfortable. Reverse hammer's pretty comfortable, but primary cutting positions, right? In a saber grip or a hammer grip, I think that's very, very good. I think they might have done a little bit more rounding on the micarta right here at the corners. I still feel a little bit of the corners, and for something that's rounded, I think they could have just made a little bit of a stronger chamfer around it. But I think the ergonomics on this, I don't think you would complain a lot about the ergonomics. I think this is a very decent knife for ergonomics. Now cutting. So cutting, it's okay. It's decent. I like utility cuts on this. Sheep's foot blades, very good for kind of draw cuts on those kinds of things. A pinch grip, very good for those kinds of things. It's not the sliciest knife in the world. If you look at the blade stock, let me see, against the paramilitaries, it's a tad bit thinner than the paramilitaries, but it doesn't feel like it. The full flat grind versus the saber grind that you've got on this makes those a lot slicier than this. But at the same time, this feels, look at this tip. You carry a lot of material out here, so you can do some serious work with this knife without worrying too much about it. I would certainly be much worried about doing some serious work with my Para 2 or my Para 3. I would certainly I would trust a lot more this knife, and I enjoy, I do enjoy when the knife is slicey, right? I mean, who doesn't? But there's a more feeling of confidence that I don't have to baby my blade, and I think this provides that for sure. Let's see, what else? Action. I'm gonna link my best action in knives video, so you can hear me talking more about action. But what I say there is that there's two components to action: deployment and closing action, right? How the knife opens, how the knife closes. And the deployment of this knife is phenomenal. The thumb stud deployment is crisp, is effortless. It's really nice. The detent is very well tuned in. It's not coming out of the detent. You can also do a front flip. I believe you can do a reverse flick. If I don't mess it up, yeah, I think you can. Let's see. Yeah, a reverse flick if you wanted to. So deployment action is excellent, and closing action is okay. I think it still has to break in a little bit. I got this knife a couple weeks ago, and so it's still it still has to break in, and I think the closing action will be very good. So where's my but? That's where kind of where I'm going to, and it's I don't understand the design of Enrique Peña in this aspect. I think his blades are awesome. His aesthetics, his choices are all top notch, except that he's got to have like the skinniest fingers in the world, because the lock bar axis on most of his knives is just tremendously bad. There's like these two dimples that you can see right here, right, to kind of better the axis. But even with that, it's very hard for me to disengage the lock bar in the liner lock here. It's not fun. It's not. I have the Ace Grand. It's an outstanding knife. I consider it one of the top knives in my collection. But I was able to kind of sand down this side of it to improve the lock bar axis. But here the liner is kind of flush with the micarta, so I would have to grind down both the titanium and the micarta to get better access, and I don't think I want to do that. So, but the lock bar axis is just really, really bad. Half the time I have to disengage with my index finger so that I can get it in there, because disengaging it with your thumb, it's not easy. You have to kind of squeeze down the meat of your finger so that it gets into that crack and push over, and that's just not great. I don't understand why he can't just this divot right here, just push it that way, right? Make the curve a little bit better. I think the ergonomics on that would still remain, and you'd have better lock access. I hope if I ever meet Enrique, I will. That's one of the things that I will say, that his knife is they're awesome, but he has to fix this lock bar axis. Like, everybody I know has this complaint. So I think it's something that is not hard to do. It's not hard to just make the lock bar axis just a little bit better. Heck, look at the lock bar axis on Spyderco, right? That divot, so you can access it freely. It's awesome, right? So lock bar axis, not great. So I think if the lock bar axis were good, I think this would be a very fidgety knife, and closing it would be a joy to do. As it is, it has excellent deployment action, but disengaging it sucks. It's just not good at all. Fit and finish. So fit and finish is excellent on this one. And let me, I've shown you a couple of examples, but so the grind lines that you see on the Reate knives, I think they are just really, really, really nicely done. So hopefully, let me see if I can get you closer, but there you go. So the grind lines on both the primary blade and the swedge is just really, really beautifully done. And then you got hand rub satin on the flats. The Peña logo is nice and crisp. It's very, very defined, even though the letters series, the S, and the E, they're it's one of those letters that can kind of smudge, but they're really, really well done. The pocket clip is excellent. It's very functional. It goes in and out of the pocket. It's rounded. It's unobtrusive. You don't feel it when you're holding onto the knife. It's really well done. The micarta is very nice. You can see it's getting a little bit of a patina, which is really, really cool. And I like green micarta for that. And I love the combination with the copper. With the copper, I think that looks really, really nice. The bronze, the copper, and the green micarta, I think all of that just looks really, really nicely done. One thing that I wanted to show you is, hopefully this comes across. Let me see if I can get you close. Yeah, as you can see here, the transition from the liner, which you can see in bronze, to this silver piece that you see at the top, well, that's the lock bar insert. So you don't see that a whole heck of a lot in liner locks. And the fact that he's done a thicker liner, I think allows him to do those kinds of things. I've seen it done in like a Shirogorov. I've seen something like this done, but this is just really, really, really well done. It's a seamless transition between the hardened steel and the titanium liner, and that's going to prevent lock stick and to the longevity of the knife. So that's really, really nice. The thumb studs are really well done. They're really well positioned. The jimping is really effective, both for deployment and in your saber grip, and it's one of my favorite jimpings. You know, one that is shallow and a little bit more constant or abundant, where the lines are closer together, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so all of that is just really, really well done. It's really well executed. I think Reate did a really good job. So my airing of grievances, by far the lock bar access, and this, you know, disengaging is just it's such a pain that I have to do it with my offhand, that it's damn near a deal breaker for me. Not quite there, but almost to that point. I think they could have done a little bit better at chamfering around the corners of the micarta. You know, the corner, you know, it's rounded, but as it transitions from this face to this face, there's a fairly well-defined corner there that I think they could have. If you can see here, the chamfering that they did right here at the tip, right here at the what we would call where the bolster would be, I think they could have carried some of this out down, and it would be even more comfortable. It's got very good ergonomics as it is, but I think they could have done it a little bit better. And I think other than that, I think it's kind of a big one, you know, the lock bar access. So just keep that in mind. But other than that, I don't think, you know, Nick Shabazz, he mentioned something about the plunge ground right here. I haven't sharpened this knife. I usually keep the factory edge until it's no longer sharp, and then I put my own edge. I will give you an update if I can on how the plunge ground and for this sharpening choil works. I'll let you know my experience with that. Well, guys, this has been the Peña Knives Bravo. So hopefully if you've liked it, you've enjoyed it, and if you'd like to see more, then like and subscribe. And until I see you next one, take care.